Carla Canales, you may be known first and foremost as a mezzo-soprano, but you're also known to another audience for a near 20-year cultural envoy for the United States, and I guess for all people who love music and the arts. What does a cultural envoy in 2024, standing here in China as an American, actually mean?
Oh gosh, well, it's the work that's been most important to me is this work, and I'm incredibly honored I've gotten to do it for almost 20 years on behalf of the State Department. I've actually been working here in China as such since 2011. So it's been now, almost 14, 15 years of this continuous relationship for me. And I find that each trip, the seeds that were planted at the beginning for me kind of grow and blossom. So the friendships that I've had now have really developed over time, sometimes rough times, sometimes less rough times. And so I think today coming here, my role is really to listen and to learn and to take in as much as I can from these very trusted relationships and from the culture in general, and see what can I do in my role as a cultural envoy to help strengthen the mutual understanding, to bring back home lessons that I think can really serve us in America to better understand our friends here. And also just personally as an artist, what can I learn about communication, about culture that, becomes a part of my inside, my inner soul and my toolkit, so to speak.
Well, your inner soul seems to run on that word, which is listen. You've mentioned it here in Fuzhou, but you also wrote about it in the headline of your op-ed for the New York Times, where you said that the US and China, well, the next step or the start for that restart has to be about listening to each other. Yeah. How does that work?
Well, I think it's really quite simple. I go back to a very basic analogy. We have one mouth and two ears. So I hope that we're listening twice as much as we're speaking. Unfortunately, I don't think we always achieve that. We're at a time where maybe for different reasons, I would say globally, there's a lot going on, a lot of shouting, I would say, a lot of sort of imposing views and less listening. And I'm interested in getting us to move away from that into, okay, what do we have in common? Let's start with our commonalities. Let's start by doing some really deep listening, and then move toward, okay, where do we not see eye to eye? And eventually, as Dr. Brzezinski said, you may have to agree to disagree on certain things. But by then, at least there's been an established trust that comes with the listening, and not just, paying homage to the idea of listening, but really truly listening and saying, I can learn something from another person.
Well, you have a pair of ears, unlike most people in the world, because it's been trained and developed over time as a singer, as a recording artist. Give us some ideas on how you actually make the best of what God gave us to listen and to learn, and maybe to apply if it's relevant.
Oh, well, I think you understand this yourself, James, as a trained musician, as a trained artist. But for me, I use kind of a very basic methodology, which I have to credit Theaster Gates for this. I learned this from him. The first step is coming into a new place. It could be a new community in my neighborhood or a new country. To say, may I listen to you, tell me about X, tell me about your culture, tell me about your home, tell me about your community. Would you kindly be so kind as to share that with me? If you're invited in and you get to that step, that's an honor. And I think if you can get from that step to a second step, which is even more of an honor, the second step is to say, thank you for sharing, and now may I share with you how I see my community, my culture, my country. And so then there's a mutual listening that happens. And cultural exchange, you have to focus on the exchange part, not just the give. If you can get beyond those two steps to the third step, that's kind of the master's level, I would say, which is to then say, my friend, take my hand. Can we now look at culture, community, country, nationality, citizenship together? Can we re-examine that concept, having listened to each other, and maybe reconsider our own view on that? That's true exchange for me.